My name is Dan Siegel, and I am a clinical professor at the UCLA School of Medicine, and I'm also the executive director of the Mindsight Institute in Los Angeles. The mind can be defined as a self-organizing, embodied and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information. And in this definition, you have a couple of things that are really important. Number one, that the mind is not the same as just brain activity. It includes brain activity, but it goes beyond just what's in your head and includes the whole body. And it's saying it's not just what happens within you, it happens in your relationship to other people or other things on the planet, for example. It's a relational process as much as an embodied process. The other aspect of this definition that's so important is as a self-organizing process, it means that this thing called the mind is actually regulating energy and information flow. And to make the mind stronger, we can make regulation work better, and that involves two things: monitoring with more clarity and modifying in a very specific way toward health. Well, a person with a healthy mind would be a person who can monitor what's going on inside of themselves and inside of others, and that means sensing energy and information flow, let's say for myself, inside my body, inside my brain, where I would feel what my heart was doing. I'd be aware of what my intestines were telling me. I'd be very aware of my body. I would know what I was thinking. I'd know what my emotions were. This would be a way where my monitoring was so stable that I could see with depth, in focus, and with a lot of detail. Then, once I could monitor well, the next statement is, well, what does it mean to modify or modulate energy and information flow toward health? And in the writings I've done, I presented the idea that integration, the linkage of differentiated parts, is the basis of health. And so that can happen inside of you, like allowing the left and right to be different, but then link them together, or allow the top and the bottom to be different, link those together. Or in memory, you can link things together, or in narrative, the stories we tell, making sense of life, you can link things together. So those are internal ways we create integration between us. For us to have a relationship that supported our both having a healthy mind, it would be where we honor each other's differences. So you can do what you do, you can have your opinions, you can like the kind of ice cream you like, I can like the ice cream I like, but we're compassionately communicating, and so we go out for ice cream together, but you can have vanilla and I can have strawberry. And that's just the way it is, where we link together even though we're differentiated. Yeah, so mindsight is a term I made up when I was in medical school decades ago for what I felt my professors did not have, which was the ability to actually see a patient and consider their emotions or the meaning of an illness as important, the story of their life as important. And they treated people as if they were bags of chemicals. This was so disturbing to me, I stopped school. But when I went back to school, I made up the word mindsight for how you could understand human beings' ability to see the mind of other people for empathy, or even in oneself for insight, and treat each other as differentiated beings but linked with compassion, which is integration. So mindsight has those three components: insight, empathy, and integration, and that's what we mean by the word mindsight. Well, a person who's learning to have insight and to have empathy and then to promote integration is got to learn how to monitor with more stability. And so that's a practice that allows you to take things that may have looked jumbled before inside of you or even in other people, and you're like stabilizing this lens through which you're seeing life. So the first part, the monitoring part, when people do it, what they experience is they experience a kind of opening up of detail, a kind of ability to look more in depth at things, a way to see more in focus. And that can feel really good. When you also learn to move energy and information flow, like what's going on inside of you, or your relationship with another person, what's happening between you and another person, toward integration, then things can move from chaos or rigidity, where they can be if they're not integrated, and you'll find your life becoming more harmonious, which is an outcome of integration. So people find a deep sense of relief, excitement, almost a sense of liberation, and overall learning to monitor well and modify toward integration are very empowering. So there's a sense of real empowerment in life when people learn mindsight skills. I deeply believe, based on looking at a lot of different sciences in this field I work in called interpersonal neurobiology, that the mind is a relational process. And the mind has the capacity to actually alter what's going on in the body. We now know from a number of research studies that, for example, your immune function can be improved with mindful awareness. That's what you're doing with your mind. The focus of your attention and opening awareness up in this mindful way actually improves immune function. We know that being present in this mindful way actually increases an enzyme called telomerase that maintains and repairs the caps of your chromosomes called telomeres. That's a mind process that's raising an enzyme that's repairing caps of your chromosomes, your DNA. I mean, that's pretty amazing. Another study that recently came out shows that how you live a life of equanimity, what you're doing with your mind, meaning, what you're doing with your mind, connection and compassion, which the Greeks called eudaimonia, is associated with actually alterations in the non-DNA molecules, the epigenetic regulatory molecules that control gene expression in areas that can prevent inflammatory diseases like diabetes and cancer. So that's a mind process that's altering molecular regulation of gene expression, mind processes that regulate enzymes that repair your ends of your chromosomes, mind processes that help the immune function work well. So in all these ways, what you do with your mind can improve your body. When we see that the mind is not only embodied but relational, then we can look, in fact, how what we do with other people is a part of the mind, and so it's going to improve your bodily function. One example, physicians who take a few moments on, let's say, a visit of a patient coming with a common cold, who just say, oh, let's see, it's May. Aren't you a student? Yes, I'm a student. God, this must be so hard to have a common cold when you're trying to study for those hard exams. This must be tough for you. Here, drink this and sleep well, or whatever you say, compared to a physician who doesn't say that empathic comment, identifying the internal experience of the patient, and just says, oh, you must have a common cold, do this, do that. Says the same things, except didn't say the empathic things. The person who had the little bit of empathy from a 10-minute visit for a common cold has an improved immune function from that interpersonal relationship that happened for 10 minutes, and they get over their cold a day sooner. Why? Because the mind, I believe, is relational. So even though you don't hear scientists in neuroscience, for example, say that, they'll say the mind is brain activity. Brain activity is a part of a much larger process that is the mind. You know, relationships that are troubling people often fall into one of two ways that they're giving them trouble. One is you feel like a relationship has become stagnant. It's not going anywhere. It's completely predictable, and we would put under the category of rigidity. It's not moving very much. Other people come to relationships that don't go well that are too chaotic. They're completely unpredictable. There's a sense of things flooding them. They're overwhelming. They feel out of control. Chaos on the one hand or rigidity on the other are both examples of impaired integration. So when a person might come to me with a difficult relationship, if I'm working with them alone or if I bring the other individual in who's they're in the relationship with, often what you'll find is that integration is not happening there. And to improve the relationship, you want to identify where in this connection of these two people is differentiation not there? How are they not distinguishing themselves from each other? Are they always with each other and not giving themselves space, for example? Do they insist the other person have the exact same values and hobbies that they have? This would be an example of not being differentiated. Or are they differentiated too much in the sense that there's no linkage? So they're not spending time together. They're just on their doing their own thing, and they don't really have compassionate communication with each other. In either case, integration requires that differentiation be present. So if they're not differentiated enough, we'd help them become differentiated. And if they're not linked enough, because you need linkage too, you teach skills to have compassionate communication. And that's a way, in general, for most individuals in difficult one-to-one relationships, how you can help them improve that relationship. Compassionate communication would be where you would allow yourself to become aware of your own feelings in your body. So there's a process called interoception, which is a form of basically vertical integration, where the higher parts of your nervous system in your cortex that allow you to have consciousness are taking in the signals from your body. And we know now that people who have more interoceptive skills, perception of the interior is interoception, they actually have more capacity for empathy. And empathy, the ability to feel another person's feelings, is the gateway toward compassion. And compassion then defined as, I feel your suffering, or I feel what's going on with you, and I care about what's going on with you, and I'm going to extend myself for compassion to support you in reducing your suffering. There's also something called empathic joy, where you actually can develop the ability to feel happy about another person's happiness, to feel joy in their joy, to feel excited about their successes. And I think as much as compassion is important, empathic joy is just as important for us to encourage in the world. Well, I guess I personally define well-being as integration. So for me as an individual on the planet, I find that if there are parts of me that are in conflict that I'm not really honoring and then helping link them, like sharing the calendar or something like that throughout the day, like a part of me that might be liking solitude and a part likes to be social, I need to respect both of them and then link them on a whole calendar plan. Integration deeply for me is the way we take all sorts of parts of our inner life, link them together, or relationally, it's how we really deeply respect the integrity of another individual and link together with open, compassionate communication. So whether it's within us or between us, integration for me is the source of well-being. And then professionally, what I found is that helping people achieve more integration is a direct path toward moving them toward well-being.